Okay. Hello out there, everybody. This is Jeff Boudreau. I'm a drummer from Baton Rouge and New Orleans, Louisiana. And I'm here in Passau, Germany, at the Cafe Museum, which is part of the Kunstmuseum, the Modern Art Museum here. And they've invited me to do a small podcast workshop on New Orleans music, and I've chosen a topic of connecting New Orleans rhythms, the rhythms of basic New Orleans music, second line music, and tracing its branches throughout modern American music. So here we go. Briefly, a brief crash course in what second line drumming and rhythm is. First, around the turn of the century, in America, there were European marches. You know, brass bands and European marches were very popular, and that groove was something like this. Those grooves were like 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. The emphasis on 1 and 3. So one of the first things that happened when African American musicians got hold of those marching drums and trumpets and horns and all was they took this European march beat and they turned it upside down to put their syncopation, the offbeat syncopation on it. So they put the emphasis on 2 and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So instead of we had 1, 2, 3, 4. And then another thing they did was they put this. I like to quote Herlin Riley, my friend from back in New Orleans, who calls it a hump. They put this hump in the music, which was like an accent at the end of each phrase, just to kind of give it some dimension, you know, a third dimension. Otherwise, it's two-dimensional, just like this. So they put that accent, that anticipation. And then they started to make variations, add more syncopation to that end of the phrase. Okay, so, and then all along at the same time is the influence from the Cuban clave that they take. So Cuban clave, 3/2 Cuban clave is 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2. Or it could be rumba clave. Sorry. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. And they took those claves and they added some variations. Like here's a variation that you find in New Orleans of 3/2 quite often. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Or 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. And sometimes they make variations on the 3, on the bar of 3. So they might do something like 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Or 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 1. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Etc. So those they mixed all, they took all those rhythms and they put them over the top of. Start with that. 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. So I'm just improvising around with in the spirit of those clave variations, and the most common the most common rhythmic element of all those claves is the syncopated part, the dotted eighth notes for you musicians out there, which is 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Groups of threes. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So, as the brass bands went along, they started to keep this the measure of 3, which is actually the Cuban bass part. They kept that and they made a groove out of that. They just stuck with that. Or sometimes it would be the clave. So, anyway, those are the kinds of rhythms that we're dealing with from New Orleans, and I'm going to show you how those rhythms and that rhythmic concept also of resolving to the last beat of the bar. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. How those concepts transfer to just about any and everything in American music. So. We start out with the first piece I have queued up is a modern jazz piece from the 60s, we say, from McCoy Tyner. It's McCoy Tyner and Elvin Jones, and it's called Passion Dance. And if you listen, the A section is a 2-3 son clave, and the bridge is a 3-2 rumba clave. It's based on that. And so I can play second line. I'm going to play the song a little bit, and then I'm going to show you that I can play second line drums along with this song. You ready? Ready, Jan? Yeah. Hit it. So we listen a little bit. So taking that clave pattern, I can play a second line groove along to it. Here we go. And on and on. Okay, now let's move on. Let's move a little bit back in history to, let's take a Thelonious Monk composition from a Miles Davis record that everybody knows this composition. And while the melody is not a consistent pattern over and over, you can hear where the melody is full of these dotted eighth notes, these groups of threes. and it fits perfectly with second line. Okay, here we go. So, Straight No Chaser, Miles Davis. The last one for jazz, John Coltrane. Here's a track from John Coltrane called One Down, One Up. And you can hear the influence of the New Orleans second line rhythm in the melody that he wrote and the way he's playing. Here's the clave. So when I play a second line over that, it sounds like this. So you can see how I transferred that rhythm into. So it's just that second line rhythm taken to the cymbals. So let's move on to some pop music. So early version of pop music that took the early rock and roll and R&B took the basic groove, 2-beat groove. For example, Where Did Our Love Go from the Supremes?
Inside
So, and then there's another level of clave rhythm influence in the melody that's going at a half time, and I'll try to outline and play that for you. It'll be like. And on and on. Now we move to rock and roll music. And this lick, everybody knows from this song from Led Zeppelin, is like taken right from the brass bands. I'll play you a brass band groove, a New Orleans brass band groove first, and I'll show you how it's the Led Zeppelin groove is taken from that. So. Check out the drum part. And now we have. So, rock and roll. So what else could we have, possibly? How about hip hop? Hip hop music. You know this groove? I mean, for me, you know, it wasn't consciously done, but for me, this comes directly from the 3/2 rumba clave second line groove. Watch, check out this song. Actually, on this song starts out with an introduction of 3/2 son clave, and then changes to 3/2 rumba clave. I'll clap it out for you here. Right? Now coming in 3/2 rumba.
In-store signing autographs at the mall. Next in line was a fly girl standing tall. Saw my name and said, give me a call, baby. You know, the girl screamed and fainted and they on the floor. The bodyguard moved us out the back door. I never saw her anymore. It was an in-store heartbreak. 95 into pajama. Thought you thought she was on the TV. She said after the show, I will wait for you. Cool. After the show, she got
etc. And take this other hip hop tune from Shanice, I Love Your Smile. See if you can figure out where the clave is on this before I tell you. In the bass, you got one clave, right? Now in the melody, same clave as the hip hop song we heard before. Next, we go backwards a little bit in history. Sorry to be dragging you around, but we'll play a short version of before hip hop music was the style called go-go out of Washington, D.C. Chuck Brown was kind of the maestro of that. And you can hear where the bass rhythm of go-go music is based on a clave, a variation of the 3-2 clave. It's based on a variation of the 3-2 clave. So I'll play it here. So instead of it's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, like that. So here we go. Chuck Brown. Here we go with Chuck Brown. On and on and on and on and on. So we're rolling the ball downhill, becoming more modern and more modern. Let's take this groove from Iko Iko from Dr. John. Everybody knows it. It's a 3-2 clave. And now let's move on to the Yellow Jackets. It's the same clave, 3-2 clave, with some accents in the middle. then that's what happens with the way to make clave rhythms happen, dress them up, is to play one clave with the bass drum and then play a displaced one with the hand. So in this tune we also have. Just short examples. Now, we come to, let's move to D'Angelo. D'Angelo and Spanish joint. So it's like a second line groove. Here we go. Guys, folks from New Orleans will recognize this groove.
Whenever it rains, feel the swing. Little something to get me through this thing. Every little thing, no time, man. Everybody needs to feel the breeze. Let go when it's on the beat. Every rush down the head. Don't have to
Okay, now we're going to turn to Erykah Badu and her version of hip-hop music, and we're going to find lots of New Orleans-based rhythms underneath what she's doing and what her drummer is doing and how the song is put together. And, of course, New Orleans rhythms are all coming from clave, from the Cuban clave. So this song in particular will have a variation on the 2-3 clave. So 2-3 clave normally is like this. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Oh, I'm sorry, 2-3 clave. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2. This variation is going to displace one of the notes. So it's going to be 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Like a groove like that. Now, when the song starts, the clave will be shifting a little bit, but follow me on it. I'll try to catch the clave of what I hear, at least, is behind the rhythm and the melody of the song. Here we go.
Your booty might be bigger, but I still can pull your nigga, but I don't want it. You got sugar on your Peter, but your nigga thinks I'm sweeter.
second line with that.
Your booty might be bigger, but I still can pull your nigga, but I don't want it. You got sugar on your peanut, but your nigga thinks I'm sweeter, but I don't want it. You know the whole encyclopedia, but your nigga thinks I'm deeper, but I don't want it. Got a whole lot of junk off in your trunk, but you nigga think I'm live and I keep him crunk. I don't want it. Hey, hey.
And on and on. And moving to the more modern, some more modern stuff. Slum Village, Get This Money, and the hip hop you hear today, it's still that same influence going on with that resolution to the last beat of the bar. One, two, three, four. So the bass drum part is straight quarter notes, but the implication of that rhythm is this. I'll play the implication that I hear, at least, of that rhythm.
Hey, 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 what you say? Get this money. If they say, what you gonna do today? Just say, hey, I wanna get paid. Hey, 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 what you say? Get this money. If they say,
Even the lyrics are like that.
hey, 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 what you say? Get this money. If they say, what you gonna do today? Just say, hey, I wanna get paid. Hey, 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 what you say? Get this money. If they say, what you gonna do today? Just say, hey, I wanna get paid. Hey, 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 hey. We dedicate this to these people out here getting paid. Where the pursuit of the money is reality.
Okay, so no American music can escape the influence of the Cuban clave, the Afro-Cuban clave, and the Cuban clave. I can't close this list out with giving some props to my friends, the Neville brothers, especially Ivan Neville, and all the guys that worked on this great record. This is a tune called "Carry the Torch," and you will hear where I'll show you where the clave is first, and then I'll play some second line with it. Right? Just like a hip hop groove, right? But there's New Orleans underneath it.
In any town, on any night, there's a young man trying to fight for his life.
So when I play with it, And so finally, since we're in Germany, the last we'll move to the last example I'm going to take is from a group called German Clap, and the song is called Mode Selector. And you can see even with this, all of the electro music and the dancing in the clubs, even the electro people, guys, they use New Orleans rhythms to get people dancing. And for example, this one is exactly, I'll play it a little bit and then I'll show you how it's related. It's like a fast version. It's a fast version of not of the clave kind of groove, but of the really old groove, the 2-beat. Remember when I was saying that they started with this groove, and then they put this hump in it to make it three-dimensional. Well, all this is that sped up. And you'll hear the offbeats come in. Put my tambourine on there. You'll hear the offbeats come in. Right about now. Now listen to what happens when the bass drum comes in. Now he's playing the tumbao on the bass drum underneath all that. One bass drum. Now watch this. It's even like the brass band, the formula for the rhythms in brass band is not just to play always. You know, they put sometimes an even rhythm on the last phrase. So it's like these guys copied it and put it on electro music. I'll let you hear it again. Next time you go to the disco or you go to the Electro place and you dancing, you can be hip. You can tell somebody, hey man, that rhythm comes from New Orleans. You go tell the DJ, hey man, what you doing with all that electronic stuff? You're just copying the old New Orleans rhythms. What you gonna do new? You know, you gonna do something new or not? Okay, listen, I want to thank Jan Korinek, my host, and Paul Zauner and the Cafe Museum. And Paul asked me to do a little bit of, explaining how second line music influenced most of, other American styles of music. And it's there. It's not like people think about second line and they write it like that. It's just they can't help it because the second line rhythms are just in the fabric of American music. And it's all coming from the turn of the century. As well, the feeling, the slightly lopsided feeling, instead of straight eighth notes like, a lot of these songs are played a little looser, like, and to me, I'm not a historian, but to me, the earliest tunes I heard that in were ragtime pieces. Ragtime pieces. It was like you had to be classically trained pianist to do that. It was kind of like classically oriented compositions, but with the new bluesy harmonic style, and then the pianist started to be a little loose with the rhythm and swing it some. So all of that stuff, and that's what hip hop is. Hip hop is just swing with a backbeat, with two levels of backbeat. One level, one, one, two, three, one, two, one, two, one, two, ah, one, two, three, one, two, one, two, three, one, two. So voila, it's all connected. Guys, go out there, support your local musicians, especially the ones in New Orleans. They're suffering now. There's not a lot of gigs happening yet. And anybody out there from New Orleans is listening to me, guys. Don't hold me to the fire now. I'm just putting out what I'm feeling, And see you next time, and tune in to Cafe Museum for more concerts. Ciao.